Shabbat shalom. Test. Achat shtayim shalosh. Working on this. Test. Yours is working, I think. Mine is not really working.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Test.
We'll just use one.
Okay.
Here.
Or if I project a little bit more, I just don't know if it's going to, I don't know if it's going to reach our folks over there. If there's a little bit, there is it. You can hear me, but can you hear me a little bit through the speakers?
I'm going to give some direction here. We can't do this for 3 hours with this.
Okay. But just people out there tell me, can you hear me at all through the speaker? A little bit, you can, yeah. I think so. Okay. Good. Let us begin wherever you may be seated, in here or out there. With Shochenat on page 147. Shochenat marom v'kadosh shemo v'chatuv ranenu tzadikim ba'adonai la'yesharim navatei befi yesharim titalal u'divrei tzadikim titbarach ובלשון חסידים תתרומם ובקרב קדושים תתקדש ובמקלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל ברינה ברשמו שכנו בכל היצורים לפניך על כל דברי שירות ותשבחות דוד בן ישי עבדך משיחך.
Please rise for Yishtabach. It's the closing bracha of Psukei de Zimra, page 148.
ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו האל המלך הגדול והקדוש בשמיים ובארץ כי לך אדוני אלוהינו ברכות והודאות מעתה ועד עולם ברוך אתה אדוני אל מלך גדול בתשבחות אל ההודאות אדון הנפלאות הבוחר בשירי זמרה מלך מלכי העולמים יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה ביעמד דברה קירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון ובימיכון ובחי תוכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ימרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לאלה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן ביעלמה וימרו אמן.
Page 149, the Baruchu.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם יוצר אור ובורא חושך עושה שלום ובורא את hakol.
We can be seated as we continue with this first bracha, the first blessing before the Shema. There's two blessings in all. The first is the blessing of creation, and the second is the blessing of
Kol tzeva marom tiferet ugedula serafim ve'ofanim ve'chayot hakodesh. Hey, alai, lalai, alai, 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 alai. Lai 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 לאל אשר שבת מכל המעשים. תתברך מושיענו על שבח מעשה ידיך ויאמרי all שעשית יפרוך הסל.
Page 153.
תתברך צורנו מלכנו וגואלנו בורא קדושים. כולם אהובים, כולם ברורים, כולם גיבורים, וכולם עושים בימה וביראה רצון קונם, וכולם פותחים את פיהם בקדושה ובטהרה, בשירה ובזמרה, ומברכים ומשבחים ומפארים ומריצים ומקדישים וממליכים את שם האל, המלך הגדול, הגיבור והנורא הקדוש הוא, וכולם מקבלים אליהם מלכות שמיים. להקדיש ליוצרם בנחת רוח, בשפה ברורה ובנימה קדושה, כולם כאחד עונים ואומרים ביראה, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. ואופנים וחיות הקודש, ברעש גדול מן השאים, לעומת צרפים, לעומתם משבחים ואומרים, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו, לאל ברוך נעימות ייתנו למלך אבקיים. המחדש בטובו בכל יום תמיד מעשה בראשית, אמר לי יוצרים. אור חדש על ציון תאיר, ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו. ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות.
Ahava Rabbah, page 154. We gather our tzitzit in preparation for the Shema.
אהבה רבה אהבתנו, אדוני אלוהינו חיים לגדולה ודברך הביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ ותוליכנו
והיו הדברים האלה מצווך היום על לבביך ושינתם לבניך ודיברתם בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך הדרך ובשוכבך ובחומך וקשרתם לילות על ידיך והיו לטוטבות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
Adonai Elohechem emet. Kayamet Udorav Chaim Adonai Eloheinu v'Elokei Avotenu v'Imotenu Malkeinu Melech Avotenu v'Imotenu Go'aleinu Go'el Avotenu v'Imotenu Yotzreinu Tzur Yeshuatenu Podenu Matzilenu Me'olam Shemecha Ein Elohim Zulatecha Ezrat Avotenu v'Imotenu Atahu Me'olam Magenu Moshiach Livnei Amachem. Tilo ve'elyon baruch u'mvarach Moshe u'Miriam u'bnei Yisrael lecha'anu shira v'simcha rabba v'yamru chulam Yalai lalai lai yai lalai lai ai lalai lai 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 Yalai lalai lai yalai lalai lai ai lalai lai 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 ai lalai lai 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 ai lalai lai 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 ai lalai lai 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 ai lalai lai 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 mi chamocha bo'elim Adonai mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh וימליכו ויאמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם Kadosh Yisrael, Baruch Ata Adonai, Gal Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Agadol Hagibor ve'Anora El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Akol, Vezocher Chasdei Libnei V'neihem, Lema'an Shemo, V'yahava, Melech Ozer Upoked U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ufoked Sarah, Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai, Mechayei Metim Atah Rav Lehoshia, Mashiv Ruach Umorid Gashem, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayei Metim Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofe Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Ba'al Gevurot, Umidom Melach, Melech Mimit, Umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'emanat halachayot metim Baruch Atah Adonai Mechayeh hametim Nekadesh et shimcha ba'olam Keshem shemakdishim oto b'shemei marom Kakatuv היה נביאך וקרא זה אל זה ויאמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוך כל הארץ כבודו אז בקול רעש גדול אדיר וחזק משמיעים קול מנשאים ליומת סרפים ליומתם ברוך יאמרו ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו לי די 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 Malkeinu Tofi בתוך ירושלים עירך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, ולנצח נצחים. אוי, ועינינו תראנה מלכותך, כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך, על ידי דוד משיח צדקך. ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך, קדושתך נקדיש, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך, קדושתך נקדיש, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש, לא ימוש לעולם ועד, כי מלך גדול, גדול וקדוש, גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We're continuing with Kaddish Shalem on page 167.
Yikra Yikara Vikara Sheme Rabba. Bialma Divra Kiruteviam Lichmachute Bachayachon of Yumechon of Chaydacho Beit Yisrael Ba'agala Vizman Karivi Meru. Amen. Yeheshme Rabba Mevorach. Leolam Uliome Omaya Yitbarach Vishtabach Vitpar Viturmamina Sevita Darvita Levita Lel Shmeda Kudisha. Brichuli Elamiko Berchata Vashirata Tushbachata Nechamata Amiram Yamavi Meru. Amen. Titkabel Tzloton Uvalton Decho Yisrael Kodam Avuhandi Vishmaya Vimeru. Amen. Yesh Lam Rabba Min Shemaya V'chaim Aleinu V'ko Yisrael Vimeru. Amen. Ose Shalom Bimromav. Huya Ase Shalom. Aleinu V'ko Yisrael V'ko Yoshvei Tevel Ve'yimeru. Amen.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. I think it's fixed. Is that right? Yes, the sound. Great. Okay, so you're Jews. There's not unanimity as to whether or not there's a little buzz. Yes, indeed there is. What's that? The live stream is not going well. So our apologies to those of you who are with us virtually. What about the cantor's mic? Did you all hear that? Loud and clear. Great. As long as only she holds it. Okay. Only she. Okay, very good. So we are going to begin our Torah service this morning with Seder Kriyat HaTorah, which can be found beginning on page 168. Page 168, the Torah service.
Ein kamocha va'Elohim Adonai, v'ein kema'asecha, malchutecha malchut kol olamim, u'memshaltecha b'chol dor v'ador. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch, le'olam va'ed. Adonai os li'amo yiten, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom, av harachamim, eitiv avirtzonecha et Zion, tivneh chomot Yerushalayim, tivneh chomot Yerushalayim, ki becha levad batachnu, melech eram v'nisa, Adon olamim. Vayehi binso Aharon, vayomer Moshe, Kuma Adonai, veyafutzu oivecha, veyanusu mesanecha mipanecha, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, udevar Adonai mi Yerushalayim, Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah, Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah, li'amo Yisrael, b'kedushato.
The bottom of page 170, Be'an Arachet.
Be'yan arachetz, ve'lishmei kadisha, kadisha yakira, ana emar tushbechan, be'yan arachetz, be'yan arachetz, Kadisha Yakira Ana Emar Tushvechan Yehi Rabba Kodamach Detiftach Libi Bioraita Vetashli Mishali Delibi Veliba Decholamach Yisrael Letav Ulechayim Velishlam. Amen. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai
Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu.
Gadlu Adonai iti uneram ema Shemo yachdav. Lecha Adonai hagedula ve'agevura tiferet ve'anetzach ve'ahod ki chol bashamayim u'ba'aretz ki chol bashamayim u'ba'aretz lecha Adonai hamamlacha v'yamid na'aseh lechol rosh romimu romimu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu le'adorav kadoshu romimu romimu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romimu Adonai Eloheinu romimu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romimu ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romimu oh romimu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho romimu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho.
Oh, someone's saying it's no. Okay. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Well, here's the funny thing. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You're guaranteed in the synagogue, there's a few things that are guaranteed to get a debate going. The temperature, that is one thing. Half of you think it's too cold, half of you think it's too warm. You know what, as a rabbi or a cantor, you're trained in rabbinical school, and Rabbi Rothblum knows this. You're trained in rabbinical school. When someone asks you about the temperature, your response, I have no idea where the thermostat is located. So I actually have no idea, and I don't ever want to know where the thermostat is in this building. It's a pitfall. Another pitfall is the microphone, because the cantor just told me half of the people are telling her it's on and sounds great, and half of you are saying you can't hear anything. So she's just going to sing and not worry about it. Another position that is maybe a little bit less controversial, but maybe should be controversial, is the position of translator of text. Because what you translate, what words we offer as a translation for the holy words of our Torah, imbue meaning. And I want to talk specifically about this morning's Torah portion, where we begin the third book of the 5 books of the Torah, the book of Vayikra, the book of Leviticus. And so I say the book of Leviticus, and you open it up, and I ask you, what's it about in one word, this Torah portion? And what do you say? Sacrifices. Some of you said oi. Who said oi? Vegetarian. So sacrifices. And what I'd like to say is, while I don't covet the job of being the translator, because I got a tough job as the rabbi with the temperature and the thermostat, and the cantor's got a tough job with the microphone, and I don't critique other people, I don't really love the translation sacrifices for the term korbanot. Does anyone want to offer why where they think I may, like, why is sacrifices, well, how about this? We'll start a different place. What is the term sacrifice? What does it connote, or what does it imply? It connotes that you lose something, right? That you, go ahead. Right, exactly. That there's a pain, there's a loss, there's a difficulty. And to some extent, that is true. After all, like they start with these burnt offerings, the olah. You can't reclaim it. And also, if you think about it, I mean, we're now living in an era where there's the industrialization of meat. And so we don't have any real concept of what livestock meant to these people and what offering it was in some ways a significant sacrifice, because it was a loss, it was a pain. But the text calls it korbanot. And what's implied in the Hebrew korbanot? What's the shoresh, or the root of korbanot, imply? The kuf resh bet. What does that imply? Bruce, right. A closeness. So the Torah, I think, doesn't so much see these offerings, and sometimes our text translates it as offerings, which I like better. But the tradition doesn't really see it as so much a sacrifice, because sacrifice implies net loss. And I think the theology of the Torah is that there's a net gain. That yes, you are losing the animal, but what you're gaining is a closeness to God. A closeness to God. And I love thinking about the offerings in that mindset, not because I find the system compelling, but because I think the idea of how do we bring ourselves closer to God is an interesting question. The writers of Leviticus certainly had some ideas, and we have other ideas. By the way, we think we're so far in advance. The Rambam suggests that we're only kind of like middle of the road in this process. He suggests that, yeah, there were korbanot that brought people back then closer to God. And now we have surpassed that with prayer. And prayer achieves a greater closeness to God, or at least a more civilized closeness to God. But it's not the ultimate expression of religiosity, according to the Rambam. According to the Rambam, the ultimate expression of religiosity is a time when prayer is even superseded. That when we as humanity are able to live in constant contemplation of God in all of our actions, in all of our deeds, in all of the time, that's when we are closest to God. And at that point, we won't need korbanot, we won't need prayer, we'll just need living. So anyway, it's an interesting idea, and one with which we can consider. And then it also brings us back to the question of how do we bring ourselves closer to God? I don't think many of us, Hillel, I think you were the first one just to say when you said oi, that you're not so excited about the idea of reinstating the sacrificial or the offering system, nor am I, as a man of tofu. But the question on how to bring ourselves closer to God is an important one that the authors of this text considered, the Rambam considered, and one that we should continue to consider as we go on living our lives. And with that, we'll begin the book of Vayikra, and I'll turn things over to our gabbis.
The reading begins on page 585, verse 1.
Vayazor v'yagen v'yoshia l'chol ha'chosim bo v'nomar amen. Hakol avogod el Eloheinu tnu kavod laTorah. Yamod, 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 the birthday boy. Hillel Akiva ben Shmuel Wolf Gittel. Rishon Baruch Shenatan Torah L'Yam Yisrael B'Kedushato. V'atem adbekim b'ronei Elohechem. Vayikol lechem hayom. Vayikra el Moshe, Vayidaber Adonai elav me'ohel moed lemor, daber el bnei Yisrael v'yamarta aleihem Adam, ki akriv mikem korban Adonai mina behema, mina bakar umina tzon takrivu et korbanchem. Im ola korbano min habakar zachar tamim yakrivenu el petach ohel moed yakrivoto lirtzono lifnei Adonai v'samach yado al rosh ha'olah v'nirtza lo lechaper alav.
In just a moment, we're going to share a blessing for Herb on this incredible day as he celebrates his 99th birthday, and it's really truly incredible. And what a privilege it is for all of us to be here. I know it's a big number, huh? Can you count to 99? You can? Oh wow. Okay, we'll get you a kiddush. So we asked Herb if he'd like to say a few words of gratitude as he marks this very special day.
I had all plans. We joined the Valley Jewish Community Center and Temple in 1982 because our
first we're going to just acknowledging Herb that it was quite beautiful when I was Herb invited me to his home. The first time I've been to your home 3 times. The first time I had to come, it was for Shiva. And then I came to your home again because you wanted to show me and tell me about your life. And I saw these incredible pictures of Herb's service to this country, the Battle of the Bulge, right? Herb was a soldier in our army, and he fought the Battle of the Bulge. And he, how many years did you serve our country for? No. 35 months in the army. And he showed me these beautiful pictures that marked his life story and Shirley's life story, and the incredible impression that they've left upon this community. One thing that everyone shares, I know it's sometimes difficult to be here every day in person. Herb still comes every day to Minyan, often virtually, so the wonders of Zoom. Herb is one of the first people always to check in at our morning Minyan. One day I got worried he wasn't there, and he said he had to get like a root canal or something instead. So I think he would have preferred to be at Minyan. But your dedication to Minyan, to daily prayer, and to this community. So many people talk about how you and Shirley would always attend the Minyan and how you did it hand in hand with love that was abundant for one another and abundant for this community. So thinking about Shirley, who's watching us from above, and thinking about you on this incredible day, and with your family here, we'd like to invite your family to please come up as we ask the community to please rise, and we offer Herb a blessing in front of the ark. May God continue to guard over you and bless you as you have blessed this world for 99 years.
Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka.
As you have been gracious and generous and kind and of service to your country and to this community and to the Jewish people, may God continue to recognize all of your good deeds and smile upon you.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.
May the path that you have paved, a life filled with mitzvot, a life filled with dedication, a life filled with kindness, and a life filled with love. May that be and continue to be your legacy. May you live to 120 years of vitality and blessing. Don't laugh at the blessing, Herb. I see that over there. And let us all say, Amen. Let's sing to him.
Yom Uledet Sameach, Yom Uledet Sameach, Yom Uledet Sameach. Mazel Tov.
Mazel Tov. Watch what please. Maybe just help him over here. We're going to continue in the Torah service with the second Aliyah.
What brave soul would like to follow that?
That's right.
Who is number 2? Ya'amod. Oh.
If anyone could do that, it's Ernie.
Asher Koach. Ya'amod Yaakov Yosef Ben Yisrael Dov Vehen Yasheni.
Reading continues on page 588, verse 5.
Baruch hu et Adonai Amborach. Baruch Adonai Amborach le'olam bo'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Baruch asher b'charbonu mikol amim v'notan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. V'shachat et ben abakar lifnei Adonai v'ikrivu b'nei Aharon hakohanim et hadam v'zarku et hadam al hamizbeach saviv asher petach ohel moed v'hipshit et ha'ola v'nitach ota lintacheha v'natnu b'nei Aharon hakohen esh al hamizbeach ve'archu eitzim al ha'esh ve'archu b'nei Aharon hakohanim et hanitachim et harosh ve'et hapader al ha'eitzim asher al ha'esh asher al hamizbeach ve'kirbo uchra'av yirchatz b'mayim v'iktir hakohen et hakol hamizbecha Ola ola ishereach nichoach la Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'dracheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Just in the presence of Herb and Ernie, maybe I'm going to retract what I said earlier when I talked about sacrifices as an inappropriate name for the offerings or the korbanot. Because sometimes participation in community requires of you to give of yourself so that others can have. And I'm thinking about that with Herb having the first Aliyah and the hundreds and hundreds of hours of dedication that he gave to this synagogue, and the same with Ernie as well. People, families who understood that when you have, you share, and you give, and you make, yes, sacrifices so that others can enjoy blessing as well. So I just, it's a privilege really for all of us to be in the midst of people like Herb and Ernie as we mark this Shabbat. And we want to, again, acknowledge Herb and also thank Ernie for sponsoring the Kiddush this afternoon. So thank you, Ernie, for your continued generosity and your continued dedication to our community. Yes, the Torah reading, the third Aliyah, can be found on page 589. Yes.
Verse 10.
Verse 10. Great. 10.
Ta'amod
Do you want to take that?
Yoela bat Don Vahinda Laliyah Shlishit. Baruchu et Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam
asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. V'minatzon korbano minaksavim o mina'izim le'ola zachar tamim yakrivenu v'shachat oto al yerech hamizbeach tzafona lifnei Adonai v'zarku b'nei Aharon HaKohanim et amo al mizbeach saviv וניתח אותו לנתחיו ואת ראשו ואת פדרו וערך הכהן אותם על העצים אשר על האש אשר על המזבח והקרב והקרעיים ירחץ במים והקריב הכהן את הכל והקטיר המזבחה עולה עולה הוא איש ריח ניחוח לאדוני.
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata betochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. This is beginning to feel like a parade of nachas, and we got more after this. A nachas parade. But I wanted just to specific of our programming and our Shabbat celebrations here at Adat Ariel. So the fourth Friday of every month, we unpack a contemporary issue. So we've already addressed anti-Semitism, food insecurity. We celebrated Black History Month. And then last night was this most incredible celebration of Pride Shabbat, recognizing the need for us as a community to do further outreach and celebration of the LGBTQ plus community. And so Jill orchestrated that, and we had an incredible evening, which we had presenters from JQ International, which is Jewish Queer International. And not only were they our guests over Shabbat, but our entire staff went through a training session led by JQ International on Friday afternoon to explore ways that we as a staff could be more welcoming of the LGBTQ plus community. And so a lot of this is Jill's good work and dedication to our community and helping us take some important steps. So we want to acknowledge Jill, and also Samara and Eli and Hillel were also active participants last night, and they shared freely, openly, and beautifully about their own stories. So we're so grateful for them to have participated in our program last night. So yesher koach to you, Jill. And you want to, like, fourth Fridays, they're really, if you're home having Shabbos dinner, that's great. But once in a while, come to the shul on Erev Shabbat. You don't have to do the dishes, and the programming and the spirit is excellent.
Ya'amod harav Yoshua David Ben Nachum Revi'i.
Baruch et Adonai Barach. Baruch Adonai Barach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Ve'i min ha'of ola korbano l'Adonai v'hikriv min ha'torim. Oh, min b'nei ha'yonah et korbano v'hikrivu ha'kohen el hamizbeh v'hikrivu ha'kohen hamizbeach u'malach et rosho v'hiktir hamizbeach hamizbecha v'nimtza damo kir hamizbeach v'hesir et murato v'notzata v'hishlich ota etz el hamizbeach kedma el mekom hadashen v'shisa oto v'chnafa lo yavdil v'hiktir oto hakohen hamizbecha al ha'itzim asher al ha'esh olahu isheh reach nichoach l'Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. It's my great pleasure to welcome the. You're all wondering how great Jill is. I mean, you all know how great Jill is, and you're wondering what adds to her greatness. Well, it's the school that she attends, which is the Academy of Jewish Religion, of which Rabbi Joshua Hoffman is the president. So it's our pleasure to welcome you. Are you like Rabbi or are you president? What's the deal here? Or you're just Josh? Just Josh. All right. Okay.
I'm the youth director.
That's right. That's right. So you want to talk about Rabbi Hoffman was the youth director. The youth you can call it director. You can give yourself a promotion. You may have lied on your resume about that, but that's so. What years were you the youth advisor?
Yeah, it was 1996.
1996. Yeah, right here. Right. Are you on the wall? Rabbi Rothblum, did you let this guy on the wall? His picture is on the wall? All right. Okay, good. Anyway, it's a pleasure, and more importantly than any title he may hold, and his titles are impressive, Rabbi Hoffman is a mensch, and I'm proud to call him one of my closest friends for 20 years. So it's always a pleasure. Yeah, I know. We're getting old. I know, yeah.
He's coming.
We continue on page 590, verse 1.
Ya'amod Guy ben Avi Va'Eliza Lavia HaChamishit.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. V'nefesh ki takriv korban mincha l'Adonai solet yeh korbano v'yatzak aleha shemen v'natan aleha levona v'heviah el bnei Aharon hakohanim v'kamatz misham melo kumso misalta umisham naha kol levona nata V'hiktir hakohen et azkarata hamizbecha isheh reach nichoach l'Adonai v'hano teret min hamincha li'aharon u'levanav kodesh karashim me'ishei Adonai v'chi takriv korban mincha me'afei tanur solet chalot matzot V'lulohot v'shemen orkikei matzot mishuchim v'shamen v'imincha al ha'machavat korbanecha Solet belulav Hashemen, matzah tehiyeh, patot otapitihim, v'yatzakta aleha shahamin mincha hi.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei haolam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Okay, since you insist, Adam, we'd like to thank Guy for having an aliyah, but more importantly, Alana, I want to tell everyone that you come to visit our minyan on most mornings, and when you come to synagogue in the morning and you ask to be with the Torah, you make everybody smile. Do you know that? Yeah! We love when you come to minyan, and we love when you get to see the Torah. So you keep on doing that, okay? All right. Yeah. Okay, good. Do you have your bat mitzvah date yet? All right.
Ta'amod, Elisheva, Bat Yaakov, Umalka, Laliyah Hashishit.
Baruchu et Adonai Hamavorah.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamavorah Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'chabanu min kol b'chamin ונתנו לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן. ואם מנחת מורחשת קורבנך, סולת בשמן תעשה, והבאת את המנחה, אשר יעשה מאלה לאדוני, והקריבה אל הכהן, והגישה אל המזבח. והרים הכהן מן המנחה את אזכרתה, והקטיר המזבחה אישי ריח ניחוח לאדוני. והנותרת מן המנחה לאהרון ולבניו, קודש קדשים מאישי אדוני. כל המנחה אשר תקריבו לאדוני, לא תעשה חמץ, כי כל שעור וכל דבש, לא תקטירו ממנו אישי לאדוני. קורבן ראשית, תקריבו אותם לאדוני, ואל המזבח לא יעלו לריח ניחוח. וכל קורבן מנחתך, במלח תמלח, ולא תשבית, מלח ברית אלוהיך, מנחתך, על כל קורבנך, תקריב מלח.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם, נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
The reading continues on page 592, verse 14.
Come on, guys.
יעמוד רפאל בן שמואל לב לעלייה השביעית.
Adonai Havarach. Baruch Adonai Havarach Olam Va'ed. Baruch Atanai Eloheinu Mekom. Asher B'Charpanu Mikol Amim. Natanganu Torato. Baruch Atanai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Ve'im takriv mincha bikurim ladonai aviv kalui ba'esh geres carmel takriv et mincha bikurecha benatata aleha shemen vesamta aleha levona mincha hi vehiktir akohen et hazkarata mi girsa umi shamna al kol levonata isher ladonai.
Adonai Eloheinu Mekom. Asher Natanganu Torah Tebet Chayilam Natabachenu. Baruch Atanai Noten HaTorah.
So Warren will get to offer you blessings when you're. Yeah. Just watch your step. Okay, wait. He's about to turn. There. Okay. And what we're going to do now is the opening day is on the horizon, so we're going to do our 7th inning stretch. So please rise for the Reader's Cottage.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah v'yamad yivrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael bagala bagala uvizman kariv v'yimeru amen Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach Le'olam le'omei omayayid Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yiturma v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shemei dekudesha Brichu li'ela mikol berchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Dabiran b'yoma v'yimeru Amen. Ya'amdu Zev ben Anshol umalka bat Shmulev Laliyah maftir b'mazal tov. So let me get out of the way here.
Chuet Adonai Hamborach. Baruch Adonai Hamborach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Asher natan lanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah. Amen. Be'im takriv mincha bikurim ladonai aviv kalui be'esh geres carmel takriv et mincha bikurecha venata nata ta aleha shemen vesamta aleha levona Mincha hi ve'iktir akohen et azkarata migirsa umishamna al kol levonata Isher Ladonai.
Baruch
Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. We want to acknowledge Warren for reading Torah, and then he's going to hand things over to his better half for the Haftarah, to Melinda for the chanting of the Haftarah. And that partnership of that is sort of centered around Judaism is how I think we all know you. As you are now marking your 22nd wedding anniversary. Mazel tov. We're getting there. We're getting to the mazel. We're winding up to the mazel tov. But we want to acknowledge not only your commitment to one another, but your commitment to Yiddishkeit and your commitment to Jewish learning and Jewish exploration. Never a class goes by or a sermon is said without one of you having a follow-up question or a comment or a note that shows how carefully you've paid attention. And every Saturday, by the way, we begin at 9 o'clock in the Deber Chapel. And every Saturday, Warren and Melinda are the first ones here, and they are the first ones that we see to offer Shabbat greetings. That kind of spirit of showing up, of paying attention, of asking questions is the way they engage this community, but it's the way that you also engage each other. So it is our pleasure to celebrate your anniversary here today. And we're going to sing a little bit to you, right, Cantor? Yeah, sure.
Siman tovu, mazel tovu, mazel tov, siman tovu, mazel tov, siman tovu, mazel tov, siman tov, yehelanu, ulecho Yisrael, yehelanu, ulecho Yisrael, yehelanu, ulecho Yisrael, yehelanu, ulecho Yisrael. I will also say that periodically they come up to me with trivia, Jewish trivia questions that I cannot always answer, and they're fascinating questions, so keep them coming. Ya'amdu hamakbia vehagolelet. Shakar. Vezot haTorah asher sa Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai beyad Moshe. Yalai lai 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 yanai nai 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 yanai nai 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 yalai. La 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 I la 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 I la 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 I la 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 I lie, 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 lie. I lie, lie, lie. I lie, 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 lie. Hang on. Wait. Now put it in. Really tight. Okay. No. One's enough. That should be good. Good. Thank you.
We can all be seated. The Haftarah for this morning will be recited after the Mishabera.
Or I can. person can get very tired of doing this and do that. So
At this point, we're going to offer a Misha Berach for all of those who are in need of healing. And I think that it's this Shabbat, as we're thinking about people who are experiencing healing or experiencing pain, whether that's physical pain or spiritual pain, I think we also hope for a healing in our homeland, the state of Israel. And so let's hope that the situation there resolves peacefully and in a way that preserves the integrity of the country and its mission to be a light into the nations. If you have a person or people in mind for whom you'd like to pray this morning, please rise in your place so we can all offer words of, so we can all think of them in our prayers as well. Misha Berach Avotinu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah Hu Yivarech v'Yirapeh et HaCholim. May God, who has blessed our ancestors, continue to bless us and all those who are mentioned with continued or with health and with refuah, with healing, including the Haftarah this morning, which is from the book of Isaiah, can be found beginning on page 607. Page 607.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nviim tovim v'rasav v'divrehem hanemarim b'emet Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'torah u'masher avdo u'yisrael amo u'yidvei ha'emet v'tzedek Amsu yatsarati li tehilati yasaperu Velo tikarata Yaakov, ki agata bi Yisrael. Lo heveta lihi seolotecha, uzvachecha, lo kivadatani, lo harevadaticha, bimincha, velo hagaticha, bilbonaha. Lo kanita lihi, vachesef kaneha, vechelak zivachecha, lo hiravitani, hevadatani, vechatovotecha, agatani, ba'avonotecha. Anochi, Anochi, hu, Mochef Rashecha lema'ani, Becharotecha lo yeskor, Hiskereni, Nivshata yachad, Saperata leman sitahak, Avicha rishon chataha, Umilitzacha, Vashuvihi, Vachalel sare kodesh, Vetnah larachem Yaakov, v'Yisrael ligidu fihim. V'ata Shema Yaakov avdihi, v'Yisrael bachativaho. Ko amar Adonai osecha, v'yotzrecha mi beten ya'azrecha, al tira avdihi Yaakov, v'yishurut bachivaho. Ki eschak mayim al tzameh v'nozlim, al yabasha et tzarech ruchi al zarecha uvechati al se'etzarecha. Vasamchu b'vet hatzir karavim al ivle mayim. Ze yamar al Adonai ani v'ze yikra b'shem Yaakov v'ze Yiktov yadav l'Adonai, u'b'shem Yisrael yichaneh. Ko amar Adonai, Melech Yisrael, b'goloho Adonai Tzivot, ani rishon, v'ani acharon, u'mevadai ein Elohim. Umi chamoni yikra v'gadeha, v'yichveha lihi, mishumi al olam, Rotiyot, Vasher Tavona, Yagidu Lamo. Altiv Chadu, Valtiruhu, Halome Az, Hishmati Chavigati, Viatem Edahai, Vihayesh Eloha Milbadai, V'ein Sur Koyadati. Yotzre Fasel Kulam Tohu, V'chamudehem, Bayo Ilu, V'dehem, Hema. Alberu uvayodu leman yeveshu miyatzah el ufesel nasah livliti ho'il hen kol haverav yevoshu v'chorashim hema me'adam yitkabitzu kulam yamodu yifachudu yoveshu yachad. Harash barezel matzahad, ufa'al ba'apecham, u'makavot yotzrehu, v'yivlehu b'Yisroel koho, v'gar ma'ev v'en koach, lo shachamayim v'yi'ahav, harash etzim natavkahav, yitarehu v'aseret yasehu, B'makutzuot uvamchugaha yitorehu v'yasehu kitavnit ish kiteferet adam lashevet bayit lichva halo harazim v'yikach tirzaha v'elon v'ametzloho v'atzeh ya'ar nataha oren v'geshem yigadel v'haya l'adam leva'er Vayikach mahem, vayicham, av yasik, v'afar lachem, ayifael el v'yishtachu, v'asu fasel, vayiskar lamoho, chetzyo saraf b'mo'esh, al chetzyo, basaha yochel, yetzlehet sali, vayishbaha, af yacha, vayamaha ha'ach, hamoti va'iti ohor. Ushevitaho le'el asaha, leaves loho, יזכר לו וישתחו ויתפלל אליו ויאמר הצילני כי אלי אתה. לא ידעו ולא יבינו כי טח מאוד עיניהם מהשכיל ליבותם. ולא ישיב אל ליבו ולא דעת ולא תבונה לאמור חציו סירבתי במו אש ואף אפיתי על גחליו לחם אצלה בשר ואוכל ויתרו לתועבה אעשה לבול עץ אסגור רואה אפר לחוטל היטהו ולא יציל את נפשו ולא יאמר הלא שקר בימיני. זכר אלי יעקב וישראל כי עבדי אתה יצרתיך עבדי אתה ישראל לא תנשני. מחיתי כאפר אשך וכרענן חטאותיך שובה אלי כי גלתיך. רענו שמים כי עשה אדוני הריעו תחתיות ארץ פיתחו הרים מנה יער וכל עץ בו כי גאל אדוני יעקב ובישראל יתפאר. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שר כל העולמים צדיק בכל הדורות האל הנאמן האומר ועושה המדבר ומקיים שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. נאמן אתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ונאמנים דבריך ודבר אחד מדבריך לא ישוב ריקם. כי המלך נאמן ורחמן אתה ברוך אתה אדוני האל הנאמן בכל דבריו. רחם על ציון כי בית חיינו ולעלובת נפש תושיע במהרה בימינו. ברוך אתה אדוני משמח ציון בבניה. שמחנו אדוני אלוהינו באליהו הנביא עבדך ובמלכות בית דוד משיחך במהרה יבוא ויגל ליבנו. על כיסאו לא ישב זר ולא ינחלו עוד אחרים את כבודו כי בשם קודשך נשבעת לו שלא יכבה נרו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני מגן דוד. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועם השבת הזה שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו לתשעה ולמנוחה לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך. יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Amen. Yesha Koach. It's a long Haftarah. We want to wish Melinda Yesha Koach for chanting that Haftarah, and for Warren for chanting the seventh Aliyah and the Maftir in honor of the celebration of their 22nd wedding anniversary. And I know, Melinda, that your brother is here, so it's nice to have him and his girlfriend and your other brother's online. So what's his name? Alan? Shabbat Shalom, Alan. Mazel Tov. Anyway, it's a beautiful morning, and we're going to give thanks now to the blessing of living in this great country. The bottom of page 177. Let's read together in the English the very last paragraph on the page 177. May it be your will that our land be a blessing to all who dwell on earth, and may you cause all peoples to dwell in friendship and freedom. Speedily fulfill the vision of your prophets. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. For all of them, from the least of them to the greatest, shall know me. And let us say, Amen. We are all obviously watching with anxiety and concern over all of the occurrences in Israel. And at this point, we're going to offer a prayer for the well-being of Medinat Yisrael. So let's all pray together on page 178. Let's offer a prayer. By the way, for those of you, before we continue, for those of you who didn't have the opportunity, we had Dr. Izahar Hess of the World Zionist Organization come to speak with us this past Tuesday evening. His lecture is recorded on our website. So you click like live stream or recordings, and it's right there. So if you had not had the opportunity to hear Dr. Hess and want to be a little bit more informed about what's going on in Israel and his perspective of that, please do check that out on our website. At this point, let's all offer a prayer for Medinat Yisrael, page 178, together in the Hebrew. Avinu Sheba Shamayim, Tzor Yisrael v'Goalo, Barech et Medinat Yisrael, Reshit Tzmichat Geulatenu. Hagen aleha be'evrat chastecha, ufros aleha sukat shlomecha. Ushlach orcha v'amicha l'rasheha, sareha v'yoatzeha. V'taknein be'etza tova milfanecha. Chazek et yedei mignei eretz kodshenu. V'hanchilem Eloheinu Yeshua. V'ateret nitzachon te'atrem. V'natata shalom ba'aretz. V'simchat olam yoshveha. V'nomar Amen. And now we'll continue with the Ashrei, page 181. Ashrei, page 181.
Should I start it off? Ashrei yoshvei v'techa, od yehallelucha selah.
Ashrei hanam shekachalo, Ashrei hanam sharonai Elohav.
Tehila leDavid, aromimcha Elohav hamelech, va'avarcha shimcha le'olam va'ed.
B'chol yom avarchecha, va'ahalela shimcha le'olam va'ed.
Gadol Adonai umulam me'od, ve'ligdulato in cheker.
Dor ledor yishabach masecha, u'murotecha yagidu.
Hadar kavod hodecha, ve'divrei nifleotecha asicha.
Ze'ezuz murotecha yomeru, u'gdulatcha asaprena.
Zecherav tuvecha yabiu, ve'tzidkatcha yeranenu.
Chanun v'rachum Adonai, erech apayim u'gdol chesed.
Tov Adonai lachol, ve'rachamav al kol ma'asav.
Yoducha Adonai kol maasecha, v'chasidecha yebarchucha.
Kavod malchutcha yomeru, ugvuratcha yedaberu.
Lehodia livnei ha'adam gvurotav, uchol tatar malchuta.
Malchutcha malchut kol olamim, umem shaltecha bechol dor vador.
Somech Adonai lechol anokim, v'zokef lechol hakfufim.
Ene kol elech yesaberu, ve'ata noten lahem et ochlam be'ito.
Poteach et yadecha, u'matzia lechocha ratzon.
Tzadik Adonai bechol derachav, ve'chasid bechol ma'asav.
Karov Adonai lechol morav, lechol asher yikra'uhu be'emet.
Retzon yereav ye'aseh, ve'et shavata yishma ve'yoshiem.
Shomer
תהילה אדוני ידבר פי, ויברך כל בשר שם קודשו לעולם ועד, ואנחנו נברך יה מעתה ועד עולם.
Please rise as we return the Sefer Torah to the Ark, page 183.
יהללו את שם אדוני, כי נשגב שמו לבדו, הודו על ארץ ושמיים, וירם קרן לימו, תהילה לכל חסידיו, לבני ישראל, עם קרובו. Hallelujah, hallelujah.
We're going to invite our younger friends. We need to make a line behind the Torah, right here behind Joette. Come here, Alana. And we're going to all march with the Torah. Let's make a line. Our younger friends, and we're going to march this way.
Mizmor leDavid, havu l'Adonai b'nei Elim, havu l'Adonai kavod la'os, havu l'Adonai kavod shemo, ishtachavu l'Adonai behadrat kodesh, kol Adonai al hamayim el hakavod yirim, Adonai al mayim rabim. Kol Adonai ba'koach, Kol Adonai behadar, Kol Adonai shover arazim, Vaishaber Adonai et arzei halevanon, Vayarkidem kemo egel, Levanon v'Sirion, kemo ven re'emim, Kol Adonai chotzev lavotesh, Kol Adonai yachil midbar, yachil Adonai midbar kadesh, Kol Adonai yecholel hayalot, vayechesof yeharot, uvechalo kulo omer kavod, Adonai lamabul yashav, vayeshev Adonai melech leolam, Adonai os liyamo yiten, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom, uvnucho yomar, shuv Adonai rufot afei Yisrael. Eitz chayim hi, lamachazikim ba, v'tomcheha, Meushar teracheha darchei noam v'chol netivotea shalom hashivenu Adonai elecha v'na Shuva Chadesh, Chadesh Yameinu, Chadesh Yameinu, Kekedem.
It's now my pleasure to call upon our darshan for this morning, Bruce Edelstein, who is not only a darshan, but he also may recruit you for the Adat Ariel Synagogue softball team, which Bruce is the manager. And so if the Dodgers have a bad year, then Bruce may get the call to the dugout in Chavez Ravine. But for right now, he's our manager, and he's still looking to fill out the roster. Is that, no, you're good? Your roster's, the roster is set, but the playoffs are coming. The playoffs, when are the playoffs? They're in May. We already made the play. Everyone makes the playoffs. Everyone makes the playoffs. The playoffs are in May, and so that's why Bruce had some time to open up the Chumash and to learn a little Torah, because the playoffs are still yet a month away. So anyway, it's our pleasure to invite Bruce to offer some words of Torah. You want this one or you want that? Over there? It doesn't matter. This is a little stronger, but whatever you want.
All right, in case I shake it or something. Shabbat Shalom. It's an honor and a privilege to speak on Melinda and Warren's anniversary and Herb's birthday. And I'd also like to recognize Rabbi Hoffman, who is one of 2 rabbis in the universe that have taught my father, me, and my children. So it is an honor to have you here. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay. I feel like I'm on one of those commercials. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? This week's parsha is Vayikra, and I'm not going to talk about it. After clearing this with Rabbi Schuldenfrei, I'm going to talk a little bit about Passover, sort of a warm-up to Shabbat Hagadol next week. So what I want to do is talk about the Haggadah and the way the Haggadah tells the story of the Exodus from Egypt, because frankly, it's really weird. The way we would expect to tell the story is you start at the beginning and you talk about the Exodus from Egypt, and you conclude with the ending of the story. But the Haggadah, you search in vain for a clear, coherent, beginning to an end story of the Exodus from Egypt. We get rabbinic midrashim, we get quotes from the Torah, we get a discussion of the rabbis who stayed up all night and whether all the days of our lives include the nights, and what is this about? It's a really good question. And I want to try and unpack this a little. So one of the mitzvahs of the Seder is to tell the story of the Exodus from Egypt. Sipur, this Sipur Yetziat Mitzrayim. The Torah does not use the word Sipur, which means to tell, as to tell a story. It uses the word Vahigatata, which means to tell, but it also means to elaborate or expound on the story. So I'll give you a great example of the use of the word. In the story of Pharaoh and Joseph, earlier in the book of Genesis, if you remember, Pharaoh calls Joseph in and says, I've had all these dreams, and he tells Joseph his dreams, and he says that the wise men, the Egyptian wise men that I've spoken to, have not been able to explain these dreams. And the word that the Torah uses is magid, which is the same root as I can never say it, Vahagadata. Magid is also the name of the section in the Haggadah where we tell the story of the Exodus from Egypt. Now, if it were simply about telling the story, Joseph would have had a very easy task. He would have said, I can tell you your dreams, after Pharaoh just told him to. You had some fat cows and some skinny cows and the good grain and the bad grain, and those were your dreams. It would have been a very simple task simply to tell the dreams. But Pharaoh was not looking for a repeat of a simple telling of his dreams. He was looking for an elaboration, an explanation of his dreams. That's what it means, and that's what we're trying to do in the Passover Haggadah. We're trying to elaborate on the story of the Exodus from Egypt. Okay, that's the first preliminary point before I get into the tellings. The second preliminary point is Aristotle. Aristotle, in his Poetics, said every story, he's talking about Greek tragedy, has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's not so unusual, but the beginning is the thing that nothing necessarily comes before, and the middle is the thing that's compelled by the beginning, and the end is compelled by the middle, but nothing necessarily comes after that. That is, depending on what story you want to tell, you will pick a different beginning, middle, and an end. So, for example, if you wanted to tell the story of Abraham Lincoln's life, you would start with his birth, and you tell all the things that happened, and you end it. But if you remember the movie Lincoln that came out about 10 years ago, despite the name, it wasn't the story of Abraham Lincoln's life. It started about 3 or 4 months before his death. It was the story of the attempt to pass the 13th Amendment. That's a different story than the entire story of Lincoln's life. So it started at a different point, and it ended at a different point. that's the second point. Where you start and begin the story affects what story you're telling. And the third preliminary point comes from the Mishnah. It says, when telling the story, begin with shame or disgrace and end with glory. Start low and go high. That's the structure that the Mishnah says we tell the story. So with those preliminary points in mind, let's see if we can take apart some of the sections of the Haggadah and see if we can figure out what on earth they're doing, because it is not intuitively obvious. By my count, there are at least 6 tellings of the story in the Haggadah, and each one is different, and each one makes a different point, and a couple of them are really weird in kind of a wonderful way. So it's kind of like a Faulkner novel. You get the same story sort of told in different ways from different perspectives, and that's part of the charm. That's part of the greatness of the Haggadah. It's a little weird, granted, but that's what it is, and I say go with it. So the first telling is Shmuel's telling. There were 2 rabbis in the Talmud, Shmuel and Rav, and they disagreed where you start when you start with grace, with shame, and end with glory. Shmuel's telling is pretty straightforward, and I think this is the one most of us would think of. It says, and the Haggadah picks this up, we were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, and the Lord our God took us out from there with a strong hand and an outstretched arm. If the Holy One, blessed be he, had not taken our fathers out of Egypt, then we, our children, our children's children, would have remained enslaved to Pharaoh in Egypt. Okay, that's kind of the straightforward telling. Simple story, slavery to freedom. The focus is on the physical aspects of slavery. And the significance of this telling is that if this hadn't happened, we would still be slaves. Whether that's literal or metaphorical is the beginning of a discussion you can have at the Seder, what exactly that means. But nonetheless, that is Shmuel's telling. That's the first telling. The second telling is his colleague Rav's telling. And Rav starts in a different place and tells a different story in the Haggadah. He draws inspiration from the book of Joshua. And he starts with the problem that Joshua was facing. They had now crossed the Jordan, they were settling the land, and the problem was that the native Canaanites were worshiping idols. And Joshua wanted to head that off. So Rav's telling says, in the beginning, our fathers served idols, but now the omnipresent one brought us near to serve the Lord. He's telling a different story. And then he quotes from the end of the book of Joshua, and he says, Joshua said to the people, thus says the Lord, the God of Abraham, your fathers used to live on the other side of the river, Terach, the father of Abraham, the father of Nahor, and they served other gods. And then it quotes more of the story of Abraham, including the part that his descendants will be strangers in a strange land and enslaved for 400 years. And then it continues, and this is not in the Haggadah, but the end of the book of Joshua continues with Joshua telling the people not to worship other gods. He's not going to do that, and the people say, we won't do that either. So Rav's telling is a different story. It's not slavery to freedom. He starts much earlier. It's the father of Abraham. And then, a whole bunch of things happened, slavery, freedom, and then we came to the land, and now we're not going to worship other gods. It's a focus on the spiritual aspect of slavery, not the physical aspect of slavery. So in an Aristotelian sense, Rav picks a different starting point, picks a different ending point, and tells a different story using the same core material. All right, that's the second telling. The third telling, this takes a little elaboration. The Mishnah, same Mishnah as before, says, the leader of the Seder expounds from the passage, my father was a wandering Aramaean. Okay, what is this about? This is the part of the Haggadah where, as you read it, everyone is sort of lost. Okay, my father was a wandering Aramaean comes from the book of Deuteronomy. And Moses is instructing the people, it's towards the end of the book, as they go into the land, they're going to settle the land, and they're going to raise agriculture or grow fruits and vegetables, and they're going to bring a first fruit offering. When the fruit finally is ready, take some of the fruit, put it in a basket, go to the temple, and say a specific thing. And Deuteronomy, this is one of the few places in the Torah where Like what you're supposed to say is actually listed out, it's quoted. And what Deuteronomy says is, my father was a wandering Aramaean. Arami, Oved, Ami. And this verse is a little tricky. So it means an Aramaean, Arami. Oved means wandering or lost or poor. Avi, my father. It continues. My father was a wandering Aramaean, and he went down to Egypt with a few people and lived there and became a great nation, powerful and numerous. Who's this wandering Aramaean? It seems to be Jacob. Jacob was the one who lived in Aram for a while, where he married Rachel and Leah, then went to Egypt during the Joseph story, and then his descendants became great and numerous. So it seems to be talking about Jacob. And grammatically, that is correct. Ibn Ezra goes into some details about the context and the grammar and says that's what it means. So what this declaration says when you're bringing the first fruits is, you say, my father was a wandering Aramaean, and he went down to Egypt with a few people and lived there and became a great nation, powerful and numerous. But the Egyptians mistreated us and made us suffer, and it goes into detail about that. But now he's brought us to this place and given us the land, a land flowing with milk and honey, and I now bring the first fruits of the soil that you've given me. Okay, if you wanted to tell that story, the story would be the story of the creation of a nation. There was a small wandering family, and then they became a great nation, and here I am living in the land, and I'm bringing my first fruits, and I'm grateful for it. The story is about inculcating gratitude for the land and the food. And you would expect, that's the third telling, you would expect that would be the story. But the Haggadah does something really weird. It draws on a midrash and misinterprets my father was a wandering Aramaean. And then it tells the fourth story, which is a different version of the same text. What the Haggadah says is, an Aramaean destroyed my father, taking the words in a non-grammatical sense, but then running with it, as midrashim often do. They will misanalyze deliberately the text in order to make a point. And so what the Haggadah says on this verse is, an Aramaean destroyed my father. It says, go and learn what Laban the Aramaean wanted to do. So now the Aramaean is Laban, Jacob's uncle, not Jacob. Pharaoh had issued a decree against the male children only, but Laban wanted to uproot everyone. As it is said, an Aramaean wished to destroy my father. And he went down to Egypt and sojourned there, few in number. And it continues with the text that we read before. So this midrash and the translation in the Haggadah goes in a very different direction. It's not about a small family becoming a mighty a great nation and gratitude for the land. It's about persecution. Laban was persecuting Jacob, Pharaoh persecuted the Jews, and now we live in safety. We have our land and we have our food. This fourth telling is about safety rather than simply gratitude, or gratitude for the safety rather than gratitude for the social aspects. Again, shame to glory, but it starts in a different place and tells a different story. By the way, there's speculation that this midrash was written during the Roman persecution of the rabbis, and so they were focusing on persecution, and they told the midrash to focus on that. And this is followed in the Haggadah in every generation. Someone has risen up against it. I mean, there's a focus in the Haggadah on anti-Semitism and persecution. So that's now the fourth telling of the story. The fifth telling, and this is where it gets really interesting, is not a telling at all, but in some sense it really is a telling. And that is the matzah and the ceremonial foods on the Seder plate. The Magid section begins with halach ma'anya. This is the bread of poverty and persecution, right? Matzah is what they had because they were poor and they were slaves. But by the end of the Magid section, matzah is the bread of freedom. So the matzah itself went from shame to glory, right? Its symbolism got transformed in the course of the Seder. And then we hold up the ceremonial foods. Rabbi Gamliel says you got to show three things, and you point to the things on the Seder plate, and you talk about what it is, and then we eat it, right? Life in Egypt was bitter. You know how bitter it was? Here, have some of this stuff. And we had matzah, and you know what? Here, eat some matzah. We are actually eating part of the story. That itself is a telling of the story, a very unusual telling, but a telling nonetheless. Samson Raphael Hirsch, in his commentary on the Gada, said, God did not entrust these truths and facts to our rational understanding and verbal acknowledgement alone. For every truth that he impressed upon our rational consciousness, he instituted acts perceptible to our senses. These indeed will arouse and revise in our hearts recognition of the truths and reminders of the facts. And if you're, I think he's right on. If you're anything like me, eating that Hillel sandwich, that first bite with the matzah and the haroset and the horseradish, especially if you use the white stuff, not the pink stuff, that is such a distinctive Seder experience and memory that it calls to mind the Seder and the entire story just from eating the food. So we tell the story through eating the story. That's the fifth telling. The sixth telling is also a little unusual, and that is the entire Seder itself is a recreation of the Exodus from Egypt. Not so much in terms of what the content is, but the experience of participating in the Seder. And this is framed by the 4 glasses of wine. So the first glass of wine is Kiddush. This is just, we kick off every Shabbat and holiday, except Yom Kippur, with Kiddush and drink the wine. So that doesn't quite fit into this, but that gets the ball rolling. That sets the stage, so to speak. Then in the Magid section, we go from slavery to freedom, idol worshiping to not idol, whatever of the 5 preceding stories you tell, or all of them. We've gone from slavery to freedom during the Magid section. And that's followed by dinner. Right? Dinner is not an interruption in the Seder where we have dinner and then we do some more stuff. Shulchan Orech, dinner is itself one of the stages, one of the phases of the Seder. Why? Well, because if you've gone from slavery to freedom, what you can do is enjoy a good meal with your family and your friends. Slaves can't do that. But we are recreating emotionally or attitudinally the idea of going from slavery to freedom. So eating a meal is itself part of the Seder. And then we have the third cup of wine after the Seder. And what do we do with the third cup? The Birkat Hamazon. We give thanks, right? Because what do free people do after they've been freed and they've enjoyed themselves? They're thankful for that. And then we do the fourth cup of wine where we sing Hallel, or we sing the rest of Hallel because we sang some of it in the first part, which are psalms of praise. So the order of the Seder is slavery to freedom, enjoy yourself, be thankful, and express praise. Emotionally or attitudinally, the entire Seder is itself a telling of the story. And what this does is it completely obliterates the distinction between audience and performer. It not only breaks the fourth wall, it just blows it completely apart. We are all performers, and we are all the audience in this participatory Seder. It is avant-garde, postmodern performance art brought to you straight from the 2nd century CE. It is a really odd way of telling the story, but a really wonderful way of telling the story. Okay, final thought. The Haggadah says in every generation one is obligated to see oneself as if he or she personally went forth from Egypt, ke'ilu, as if. And I think that's the key word of the entire Seder. It's an imagining of, no, it is. It's an imagining of the entire experience and all of the multitude of experiences, the different ways that we tell the story. the question that it leaves us with after at least six, there's actually a couple more that I think I'm not going to talk about. At least 6 different retellings of the story, the question it leaves us with is, what does the story mean to us? How are we going to go from something bad to something good? And how do we apply this in our own lives? The Haggadah is a very odd text, but that is part of its beauty and its charm. So I say accept it and embrace it. Shabbat Shalom.
We want to thank Bruce for that thoughtful discussion in recognizing, I think, what we would all agree is the importance of making the text our own, and that all of these various ways of telling the story are done with the goal, of course, of engaging us, of pulling at our life experiences and where we stand currently in order that we can derive meaning out of this ritual. So we want to thank Bruce for going through the different stories that he saw in the text, as well as emphasizing the importance of the expounding of meaning from them, and how you tell a story, and the differences of storytelling. So thank you, Bruce. We're going to continue with Musaf on page 184 with the Chatzi Kaddish.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah v'yalmad yivrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechonu v'yimechonu v'chaydecho beit Yisrael b'galav v'zman kariv v'meru Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach li'olam li'omei omayayit Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpor v'yitrom v'yinaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalel shmei dekudesha Brichu li'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata Tamiran bi'olema v'meru Amen.
Please rise the Musaf Amidah, page 185.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu v'imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Agadol, Agibor ve'anora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'konei Akol V'zocher Chastei Avot V'imahot Umevi Goel Livnei V'neihem Lema'an Shema Be'ahava Melech Ozer Ufoked Umoshia Umagen Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham Ufoked Sarah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechaye Metim Atah Rav Lehoshia Mashiva Ruach Umorida Gashem Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed Mechaye Metim Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim Verofeh Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar Bichamocha Ba'gevurot Umidam Melach Melech Memit Umechayeh Umatzmiach Yeshua V'ne'emanata lachayot Metim Baruch atah Adonai Mechayei Ametim Na'aritzecha v'na'akdishcha Kesod siach sarfei kodesh Hamakdishim Shimcha ba'kodesh Kakatu v'yad neviecha V'kara zeh el zeh V'yamar Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Adonai Tzvaot Meloch ol haaretz kevodo כבודו מלא עולם, משרתיו שואלים זה לזה, איה מקום כבודו, לעומתם ברוך יאמרו, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו הוא יפן ברחמים, ויחונם המייחדים שמו, ערב ובוקר בכל יום תמיד, פעמיים באהבה שמע אומרים, שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד הוא אלוהינו הוא אבינו הוא מלכנו הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו שנית לעיני כל חי להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור הללויה לדור ודור נגיד גודלך ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד כי המלך גדול וקדוש אתה ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. יתקרא ויקרא שמי רבה בעלמא דברה קראתי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון ובימיכון ובחיי תוכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב יאמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמי יתברך Yitbarach, Vishtabach, Vipor, Vituramina, Sevita, Darvita, Levita, Lel, Shmeda, Kudisha, Brichuli, Lamin, Kobir, Chatav, Shirata, Tushpachatav, Nechamata, Damir, and Piamavi, Meru. Amen. Titka, Beltzloton, Uvoton, the Chol, Yisrael, Kodam, Avu, Hondi, Vishmavi, Meru. Amen. Yeh, Shlam, Rabbamin, Shemaya, Vachem, Aleinu, Vakol, Yisrael, Vimeru. Amen. Oseh, Shalom, Bimromav, Huyaseh, Shalom, Aleinu, Vakol, Yisrael, Vakol, Yeshvei, Tevel, Ve'yimeru. Amen.
In Kelohenu, page 204.
Ein Keloheinu, ein Kadonenu, ein Kemalkeinu, ein Kemoshienu, Yam badadai lai 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 lai, Yam badadai lai 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 lai, Yan na na nai 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 nai, Yan na na nai 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 nai, Mi Keloheinu, Mi Kadonenu, Mi Kemalkeinu, Mi Kemoshienu, Yam badadai lai 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 lai, Yam badadai lai 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 lai, Yan na na nai 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 nai, Yam badadai dai dai dai, No de Eloheinu, no de Ladonenu, no de Malkeinu, no de Moshienu, Yam badadai lai 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 lai, Yam badadai dai lai lai lai, Yan na na nai 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 nai, Yan na na nai nai nai, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Yam badadai lai 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 lai, Yam badadai lai 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 lai, Yan na na nai 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 nai, Yan na na nai nai nai, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Tahu Moshienu, Yam badadai lai 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 lai, Yan na na nai 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 nai, Yan la la lai 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 lai, Yan la la lai lai lai.
Please rise, Aleinu, page 205.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, latet kedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kigoyei aratzot, velo samanu kemishbechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol amonam, vanachnu korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נוטה שמיים יוסד הארץ ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל ושכינתו זו בגובי מרומים הוא אלוהינו אין עוד אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו ככתוב בתורתו וידעת היום והשבת אל לבביך כי אדוני הוא אלוהים בשמיים ממעל ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד על כן נקווה לך אדוני אלוהים לראות מרבי תקנו לממות אדוני כי המלכות שלך היא ולעולמי תמלוך בכבוד ככתוב בתורתך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
In love, we recall those who no longer walk this earth, and we are grateful to God for the gift of their lives and for the cherished memories that never fade. This week, we as a congregational community mourn the passing of David Berman, the husband of Rabbi Sarah Berman, and Rachel Kotkova, the grandmother of Maria Weinman. And we are also in the midst of observing the Shloshim, the 30 days since the passing of Deli Weisberg, Dr. Harold Jerome Stolberg, Barbara Bobby Ann Summers, Trana LeBeau, and Irene Shanes. And on this Shabbat, we mark the yurtzeits. We'll mark the yurtzeits in the coming week of Hannah Fox, William Astor, Jenny Deichman, Herbert Edelman, Dora Green, Ingrid Jacobson, William Rothenberg, Karen Zukow, Albert Elias, Ronald Finn, Bernice Jordan, Irving Kellerman, David Picker, Catherine Samuels, Ruth Goldman Slutsky, Leon Turner, Julius Josephsberg, Darren Russell, Sean Sidney Wiggins, David Aronoff, Dora Becker, Harold Copans, Mary Mars, Helen Nebel, Gertrude Papkin, David Preiser, S. David Rosenzweig, Chaim Rottenberg, Solomon Siegel, Saul Taylor, Ruth Bernhardt, Ari Brumberg, James Gerber, Philip Ginsberg, Lena Gittig, David Goodman, Esther Kafton, Sherry Kaikoff, Herman Liu, Rose Olin, Woodrow Perlman, Walter Reichheimer, Eric Small, Ida Staub, Ida Turk, Vonda England, Florence Fracht, Lillian Ginsberg, Jacob Goodstein, Maddie Lake, Schiffer Levine, Leonard Shapansky, Alicia Sharvit, Elizabeth Binder, Richard Fields, Mildred Laurie, and Faye Sills. Is there anyone else observing a yurtzeit for someone who I neglected to mention? Okay, we'd like to ask those of you who are mourning or observing yurtzeits to please rise as we sanctify God's name with the words of Mourner's Kaddish on page 207. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah Bi'alma Divra Kirute V'yamlich Malchute B'chayechon Uvyamechot Uvchaye Dechol Beit Yisrael Ba'gala Uvizman Kari V'imru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah Mevorach Le'olam Almei Almaya Yit Barach V'yishtabach V'yit Pa'ar V'yit Ramam V'yit Naseh V'yit Tadar V'yit Taleh V'yit Talal Shemei Dekudisha Barichu Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nechamata Damiran B'alma V'imru Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chaim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Osei Shalom B'imromav Huya Asei Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel V'imru Amen. And may the memories of our loved ones be a continuing source of comfort and blessing. And let us all say, Amen. Oh, Christine. Oh, it's now my pleasure to call upon Chris Prell, who's our Executive Vice President Extraordinaire, for some words of greetings and gratitude and some announcements.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. What a wonderful morning, this morning celebrations. Mazel tov to Warren and Melinda Trauman on their 22nd wedding anniversary. Beautiful reading also, by the way. And happy birthday to Herb. I just want to personally say it's always been a pleasure being alongside you in board meetings. And you probably don't know, but I don't, Herb, how long have you been a board member? How many years? Board member? 30? 40? Yeah. You were he was yeah, since the pandemic, yeah. And I worked alongside Herb for many, many, many years, and he was here, he was part of our board before I joined. And so he's indirectly contributed, whether you know it or not, to Adat Ariel and making Adat Ariel what it is. So thank you so much, Herb. And also, if you don't know about Herb's service to our country during World War II, please Google search him. He has an extensive interview, which I've read, about your service. And so thank you so much. We appreciate it. Happy birthday. So today's Kiddush lunch is graciously sponsored and co-sponsored by Warren and Melinda Trauman and Ernie Goodman. And I want to thank all of those who participated in services this morning. Our Darshan, Bruce Adelstein, who's also our VP of Religious Life. And so he has a passion for helping, getting programs and members involved in religious life. So if you have any questions, I'm going to tell everybody come see you today. Our Torah readers, Cantor Judy Dubin Aronoff and Adam Spiegel and Warren Trauman. Our Haftorah, Melinda Trauman, Aliyah coordinator Jim Lesserman, thank you. And our Gabayim, Joette Lavenger and Robert Sachs. And our greeter, Kate Bloomberg. Now tonight is casino night for is sponsored, helping the proceeds go to our Jewish learning community, which helps support all of our youth supplemental education here at Adat Ariel. It is a retro classic Vegas casino night. If hope you've RSVP'd at 7:30 tonight, but if you have not, let me or Rabbi know and just come, and then we'll worry about contributions later. So it's going to be a wonderful night. Dress up, retro Las Vegas. Hope to see, if you can make it, hope to see you there. Also, Pesach is fast approaching, and April 5th is the first night community Seder here with Rabbi Yarkin. And April 6th is our Pesach first day of services. And on April 6th is Jammies and Jeans for the second night Seder with Rabbi Schuldenfrei and Rabbi Holtzman. And then check the website for additional service times on April 7th, 12th, and 13th. Please reserve Sunday, May 21st for our annual gala. This year we're going to be honoring our past president, Lena LeBeau, who helped guide us through the pandemic in extraordinary ways, and she's so deserving. And we'll also be honoring Betty Gittig with the Spirit Award. She also had chaired the COVID task force team and got us through the pandemic as a community. So you'll see more information about that in the coming weeks. Again, it's going to be Sunday, May 21st. If you have any other questions about our program, sponsoring Kiddush, please reach out to Liron DeVere, and Shabbat Shalom.
We just want to echo Chris's announcements. Come to casino night tonight. Sign up for a Passover Seder. The first night is a community Seder. And the second night is Jammies and Jeans. So it is it's hot dogs and French fries and lots of little children running around. So it's going to be perfect. And so if you know people who would benefit from that type of experience, or either experience, whether or not they are official members of Adat Ariel or not, please, everyone's invited. And then I just also want to let everyone know that on the horizon, we're going to have a Yom HaAtzmaut celebration and also a Yom HaShoah commemoration. But directly after Passover, myself and Eric Nicastro, we're leading a bus, a delegation on the March of the Living to Poland, and then we're going to continue on in Israel, where we'll meet up with some friends in Israel as well. So we're very much looking forward to that experience. So there's a lot going on here in the next few months, and we hope that you will participate and enjoy the community. Also, if you want to sell your chametz, I encourage everyone to sell their chametz. Please do fill out that form, and it's part of it's online in the Passover resource sheet, or also you can just track it through your emails. Okay, we are ready. Mr. Asweed, are you going to lead us in Adon Olam?
Yep.
All right, let's make it happen.
Okay.
What page are we on?
211.
Page 211. Okay. And why don't we ask your family to come up? You guys will make Kiddush. Come on. Oh, and I'm sorry. And also join Eitan. And why don't we have Herb and his family come on up for the Kiddush, or is it easier to stay there? Yeah, okay, come on up. Okay, yeah, you can stay over there and come on up for Kiddush.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead.
אדון עולם, אשר מלך, בטרם כל, יציר נברא, לעת נשא, וחפצה כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם, ואחרי ככלות הכל, לבדו ימלוך נורא אדון עולם, והוא היה, והוא הווה, והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם, אדון עולם, אשר מלך, בטרם כל, יציר נברא, לעת נשא, וחפצה כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם, והוא אחד ואין שני, להמשילו להכבירה אדון עולם, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, בלא העוז והמשרה אדון עולם, אדון עולם, אשר מלך, בטרם כל, יציר נברא, לעת נשא, וחפצה כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם, והוא אלי, וחי גואלי, וצור חפלי בעת צרה אדון עולם, והוא ניסי ומנוס לי, מנת כוסי ביום אקרא אדון עולם, אדון עולם, אשר מלך, בטרם כל, יציר נברא, לעת נשא, וחפצה כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם, בידו אף כי רוחי, בעת ישן ואירה אדון עולם, ואם רוחי גוויעתי, אדון עלי ולא אירא אדון עולם, אדון עולם, אשר מלך, בטרם כל, יציר נברא, לעת נשא, וחפצה כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם.
Al Kim Baruch Adonai et Yom HaShabbat v'yikadshehu Savri.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hakafen.
Amen.
And okay, and then kindly put your hands out. And we make the blessing, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu al netilat yadayim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min ha'aretz.
Amen.
Shabbat Shalom.
Good Shabbos.
Give me some challah. Okay, you get the first bit of challah. You get the. It's a policy. It's like a board vote. It's no intention. Big piece. Oh, sorry. It's Gary. Gary's going to make it. It's easier to say something.
The worst company area I've ever had. You guys have lessons
By leaving in 15 minutes.
That was the worst company ever.
Rosalie, if he wants to say something, he can say something in Kiddush, okay? All right. Gary, Gary, I owe you an apology. All right, I am sorry. All right, I am sorry, Gary. Yeah, well, I didn't want to we want to move around the Torah service there. I just forgot, right? Because there's the open floor. So we'll do it, we're going to do that in there. All right. I know, but then everyone's going to